I was standing in his kitchen, sunlight streaming through a window that overlooked the city. He'd just handed me a cup of coffee, the good stuff he always bought. He smiled that easy smile of his and said, "You know, I was thinking, we should get you a key cut. Feels weird you even have to knock anymore." For a second, my heart soared. This was it. This was real. I was building a life with this man, this kind, brilliant, successful man who saw me, who chose me. Then my phone buzzed. It was a fraud alert from my bank. A $500 charge for something called a Dragon's Hoard bundle. I looked at the alert, then at him, standing there in his expensive wrath boat, and in that instant, the beautiful mirage I'd been living in shattered. I wasn't his partner. I was his latest investor, and he didn't know it yet, but I was about to call in his debt.
My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 32. I own a small landscaping business that specializes in restoring old, neglected gardens. I spend my days with my hands in the dirt, coaxing life out of forgotten patches of earth. It's hard work. It's honest work. You can't lie to a plant. It either thrives or it withers. There's a simple truth to it that I've always valued. I met Mark at a client's dinner party. He was charming, articulate, and had a story for everything. He told me he was a freelance writer and consultant specializing in historical research for documentary films. It sounded fascinating. He talked about tight deadlines, demanding producers, and the thrill of unearthing a forgotten piece of history. He had this way of making his life sound both incredibly stressful and deeply important. He also told me, early on, that he struggled with anxiety and depression. He framed it as a battle he was winning, something that made him more empathetic, more attuned to the world. I understood. My own father fought that same war his whole life. I wasn't scared off by it. If anything, it made Mark seem more human, more real. Our relationship moved fast. He pursued me with an intensity I'd never experienced. He'd insist on picking me up after a long day of mulching and planting, saying I deserved to be taken care of. He'd leave a drawer empty in his dresser and say, "This is for you, for when you stay over." He lived in a beautiful downtown apartment with stunning views. I felt like I'd stepped into a different life. He even introduced me to his family doctor when I mentioned I was looking for a new one, saying, "We can be on the same page with our health, too." It all felt so solid, so intentional. I fell, and I fell hard. The first cracks in the foundation were small, almost invisible. He'd have these periods where he would just disappear. For a day or two, my texts would go unanswered. Then he'd resurface with a whirlwind of apologies and a plausible story. A brutal deadline had consumed him. A depressive episode had laid him low, and he was too ashamed to reach out. Each time, I'd swallow my frustration and offer my support. How could I be angry at a man who was fighting his own mind? Then the money thing started. It was subtle. He'd forget his wallet when we went out. He'd ask if I could cover groceries, promising to get me back when his latest invoice cleared. It never seemed to. He was always waiting on a check that was in the mail. I was doing well with my business, so I didn't think much of it. I was helping my partner through a rough patch. That's what you do. The real trouble started with his younger brother, Kevin. Kevin was in his early 20s and had some serious mental health challenges. He adored Mark, saw him as this brilliant, successful older brother who had it all figured out. Mark would often have Kevin over, and I noticed he was always giving him things. Cash, which he'd borrowed from me the day before. He even gave Kevin a couple of his own prescription Adderall pills once when Kevin was feeling overwhelmed, saying, "This'll help you power through, little bro." I told him that was a terrible idea, mixing prescriptions, but he brushed me off. I know what he needs better than some doctor. The lie unraveled on a Tuesday. I'd come home early, covered in mud and sweat, expecting the apartment to be empty. I walked in and found Mark on the couch, illuminated by the glow of a massive computer monitor. He had a headset on and he was yelling, "Heal me, you idiot! I've got aggro from 3 mages!" It wasn't a documentary script on his screen. It was a video game, an elaborate, fantastical world of dragons and wizards. He didn't see me. I backed out quietly, my heart pounding. His demanding job, his tight deadlines, it was all a game. That's when I saw the mail on the hall table, a letter addressed to him from his mother. I know I shouldn't have, but I opened it. It was a bank statement. A monthly transfer of $4,000 was deposited into his account, labeled living expenses. The apartment wasn't his. The money wasn't his. His entire life was a stage, built and paid for by his parents. He wasn't a brilliant writer battling his demons. He was a 35-year-old man playing video games in his mom's condo. I didn't confront him. What was the point? He'd just spin another story, uses depression as a shield, and maybe even turn it around on me for invading his privacy. No, a liar like that doesn't respond to the truth. He only responds to consequences. I felt a cold, quiet calm settle over me. The hurt was still there, a heavy stone in my gut, but it was being overtaken by a sense of purpose. I'd been tending his garden for months, and it was time to pull the weeds. All of them. I played my part for another week. I was sweet, supportive, and acted like nothing was wrong. All the while, I was gathering my things, making a plan. My plan had 3 parts, like a well-designed garden. Prepare the soil, cut off the water supply, and then remove the invasive species. First, the doctor. Mark had made a critical error by connecting me to his personal physician. He had given me access to his infrastructure. He thought it was a gesture of intimacy. It was actually a security flaw. Second, his mother. She was the source of it all. The money, the apartment, the enabling. She thought she was supporting her struggling artistic son. She needed to see the reality of her investment. Third, a small matter of what was mine. He had gifted me a year-long membership to a high-end health club. I knew now that his mother's credit card had paid for it. He didn't deserve to have the satisfaction of taking it back. It was mine. I had earned it. I waited for the right moment. It came on a Friday afternoon. He was engrossed in his game, headset on, a world away. I started packing my last few things into a box. My plan was ready. Step 1, preparing the soil. On Monday morning, I called Dr. Adams' office. I made my voice sound a little hesitant, a little naive. "Hi," I said to the nurse. "I'm a new patient. Dr. Adams is also my boyfriend's doctor, Mark Costello." I paused, letting that sink in. "I have a kind of an unusual question. Mark gave me one of his Adderall pills the other day when I was feeling really stressed and unfocused, and it helped so much. I was wondering if Dr. Adams would consider writing me a prescription for it. It was amazing." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could practically hear the nurse's hand hovering over a red flag button. Sharing a Schedule II controlled substance is a cardinal sin. "Ma'am," she said, her voice suddenly crisp and professional, "the doctor would need to see you for a full evaluation before prescribing anything. I will make a note of your request in Mr. Costello's file. Dr. Adams will review it." The fuse was lit. I knew that the next time Mark went for his refill, he wouldn't be walking out with a bottle. He'd be walking into a very serious conversation with his doctor about prescription drug abuse.
His easy supply was gone. Step 2, cutting off the water. That afternoon, I called his mother. I had found her number on the bank statement. This was the hardest part. I didn't want to hurt her, but she was the only one who could turn off the tap. I took a deep breath and framed my words carefully, not as a vengeful ex, but as a concerned adult. Mrs. Costello, this is Sarah. Was Mark's girlfriend. I'm calling because I'm very worried, not just about Mark, but about Kevin. I told her everything, calmly and factually. I told her about Mark's non-existent job, the thousands of hours spent on video games, and the money that he'd borrowed from me. Then I delivered the final blow. The main reason I'm calling is that Mark has been giving Kevin his prescription stimulants. I know Kevin is on his own medication, and I'm terrified of what that combination could do. Mark also brings marijuana into the apartment when Kevin is there. I felt you had a right to know what was happening in the property you own with the money you provide. She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was like ice. Thank you for telling me, Sarah. I will handle this. The tap was turned off. Step 3, reclaiming my ground. I drove to the apartment that evening to get my last backs. Mark was in a rage. He'd clearly already received a call from his mother. "What did you do?" he yelled, his face pale. "My mom is cutting me off. She thinks I'm some kind of drug dealer." "I just told her the truth, Mark," I said calmly, picking up my box. "It's something you should try sometime." I was heading for the door when I stopped. "Oh, one last thing. The key fob for the health club." He stared at me. "What? No, I'm canceling that. You don't get to keep it." "It was a gift, Mark, and frankly, neither of us paid for it. I'm not leaving without it." I set my box down and crossed my arms, prepared to wait all night. I had nothing but time. He was the one living on a countdown timer before his fantasy life imploded. He glared at me for a full minute, his mind probably racing, realizing he had absolutely no leverage. He stormed into his bedroom and came back out, throwing the small plastic fob on the table. It landed with a pathetic clatter. I picked it up, put it in my pocket, and walked out the door without another word.
I didn't have to imagine the consequences. I saw them. About 2 weeks later, I was driving past the apartment building and saw a moving truck out front. Mark and his mother were on the sidewalk, arguing. He looked smaller somehow, defeated. He was loading boxes of his expensive electronics into the truck, a spoiled king being evicted from his castle. His mother wasn't looking at him with sympathy, but with cold, weary disappointment. A few days after that, I got an email from the health club. My membership had been canceled due to non-payment. His mother had cut off everything. I never heard from him again. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he was living in his old bedroom in his parents' house, and his mother had put him on a strict allowance contingent on him getting a real job and attending therapy. He wasn't a mysterious, tortured artist anymore. He was just a guy who lived with his mom. I'm out in a garden now, on my knees in the rich, dark soil. I'm planting lavender along a stone wall. It's a resilient plant. It doesn't need much, just honesty. Honest sun, honest water. It can't be fooled. For a while, I was angry at myself for being so blind, for falling for a man who wasn't real. But I've come to realize I didn't fall in love with a liar. I fell in love with an idea. The idea of a man who was kind, caring, and responsible. The problem wasn't with what I wanted. It was with who I tried to build it with. Some might say I went too far, that I ruined his life. I don't see it that way. A life built on lies and someone else's money isn't a life. It's a bubble. All I did was hold up a pin.
He was a plant that was thriving in a greenhouse, completely dependent on an artificial environment. I just opened the door and exposed him to the real weather. Whether he withers or learns to grow real roots is up to him now. My revenge wasn't about causing him pain. It was about restoring a natural order. It was about consequences. In my world, if you don't work, nothing grows. You don't get to have a beautiful garden without getting your hands dirty. He thought he could. He was wrong.
Like and subscribe.